Carlos, and in this video I want to show you the latest features in RenderBoss 1.1. And actually it has been a while since I last posted a video, so I'll go over some features that were added in the last several updates. If you have automatic updates on, you probably have seen some of these features already, but you might want to check this video out in case you missed some cool features. So let's start with the most obvious one, and this is the latest one, which is the UI. And the previous UI was a bit cluttered and honestly not my favorite. But for a while, it wasn't our top priority since, it worked and we were working on the Mac version, which we're still working. And actually, part of what triggered the UI change, like when we were doing it for the Mac, we realized some things could be much easier and much more streamlined. So we wanted both of them to match. So we did it on the Windows version first, and we're still working on the Mac version. But anyway, I think this new UI is much better. And for one, we actually put the renders front and center, and previously there were several tabs here on top for options that don't really need to be accessed all the time. So we moved most of those to the top menu here, and you can see here like the options, the folder dictionary, and if you go to the help, license, etc. The only exception, the only thing that we didn't move up there is the multi-thread panel, and that one we moved to the bottom here because that one you might want to see while you're rendering. So, we didn't want to be on a separate menu or anything like that. So you can either hide or show this panel. And it's basically the same controls as before, including, the thread control and the resource monitor, where you can see the CPU, memory, and all that stuff. But now we have this extra panel with a bunch of render stats that you might not be interested. But either way, it's your choice. You can hide the panel if you don't want to see this. One of the big pushes of this UI was to actually simplify getting started. And so for single machine setups, there's no need anymore to set up the work folder at the beginning. And if you don't know what the work folder is, well, yeah, good. You don't need to know anymore. And you can still change it in the options if you know what I'm talking about. But you don't need to do it. So it's much, much easier. And that was actually something that was confusing people, and unnecessarily so, because for single machine setups, you could just have a default one. And of course it makes sense when you think about it, but hindsight is 2020. For multi-machine setups, of course, you still need to point all the machines to the same work folder. But now there's an assistant that guides you through it, and it will check for common issues. And it's only 3 steps really on each machine. But now we have a safety net for some of the common pitfalls that we've seen with the hundreds of people that have used it. Let me show you right now. So we're just gonna go up here, then set multi-machine renders, and we'll just follow these prompts. And let's do it right now. Let's say this is the first machine, and then we need to select the folder that all the machines have access to. If I select something that doesn't work for that, for example, if I select the desktop, it will tell me that, this is not detected to be on a network. So yeah, and also like mapped, if you have a mapped drive, like here I have Q, and that actually goes to the network, to the server. And it will warn me, and it will tell me like, if this is not the same letter on all the computers, it might cause an issue. So it will give you a suggestion of something that you can change it to. And in this case, I'll take it. So now if I hit next, great. So the first machine was configured successfully. And now we just need to basically just copy the same folder to all the machines. And here you can either copy to the clipboard, and you can even check here, and then before you hit finish, and that will send me the instructions to my email. And actually, let me show you that. Let's finish. And if I go to my email, so now if I go to my email, all the instructions are here, and you can send that to whoever's setting up all the other machines. And actually the network location is in the email. So you can literally just copy this. And if we go to a second computer, and actually let's go to, now this is a second computer, I'm just over remote control. And if I go to the assistant, and now I select that this is not the first computer that's been setting up. And then I can just paste from the clipboard and hit next. And that's it. I think it's much easier than in all the previous versions. So I hoping it's not going to be a barrier for anyone anymore. All right, let's go set up a render, and I'll talk over certain new features. The first thing I want to talk about is these 3 little options down here. And they've been here for a few versions actually, but we recently improved the way they work. So they're much faster to detect when something's missing. And I guess I should explain what they do, but if you turn this on, RenderBoss will check for missing effects, fonts, or footage, whatever you check here, on every machine before rendering. And if it's missing any of those or the ones that you have checked, it will prevent that machine from rendering. And that way you don't get like weird frames with the wrong font or frames without an effect or something like that on your renders. Another very useful option that we introduced I think it was in the previous update, was target machines. And with this, you can send a render to a specific machine instead of sending it to all. If I click refresh here, it will check the status of the machines. And if, for example, I set the target to this other machine, yeah. And when I send to render, you'll see that, yeah, it starts rendering on the other machine. And in this machine, the status is skip because this machine is not the target. And you can override this if you like, though. You can right click on the item in the queue, then set to render. And you can do in this machine, and this machine will start rendering. Or you can do on all machines. We'll come back to this window. Let me turn this off for now. And let's go back to After Effects. Because the next option I want to talk about is this. Final video processing. And this one has actually been around for several versions now. I just haven't mentioned it in the video before. But it's really useful if you need to render on H.264 or MP4 and you don't have a third-party H.264. If you remember, a few versions ago, After Effects removed the ability to render MP4 files directly. We made it so now you can render all the frames in RenderBoss, like pre-render them, and then we'll send them to Media Encoder. There should be another video about this feature. And the link for that you can check in the description, and we go a bit more in depth on how to do that. For now, I'll just leave it to use After Effects, just as the default. And before I send this render, let me show you real quick. It's a super simple thing, but it was actually suggested by one of you guys. And it's this little option. So if you check this, RenderBoss will actually ask you to name each render instead of using the auto-generated names that we currently use. Let's leave that on and I'll send a render. Let's call it, I don't know, new version demo. Cool. All right, so the render, let's go back to RenderBoss, and here are the renders. You can see the previous render I had sent, that target at the other machine. And let me show you this window. This was actually not in this latest update, but one before. And this was the new information window. And I see renders all the time. And I actually like this information window. It's super simple, but I think it's really useful. It shows you the render options. For example, if you chose to stop on missing footage or something like that. Or you can also see the status of the render on other machines, and a bunch of other information about effects, and what files it uses, and a bunch of other options. And I think it's pretty neat. The last thing I want to talk about is temporary image files. And remember that we stopped this previous render before it was finished, and that means it rendered several frames from all the machines. But since we didn't let it finish, we never got the final output. And that means you can set any machine to render again, and they'll pick up from where you stop rendering. But RenderBoss will usually delete the files a while after a successful render, and you can change that behavior in the options. It's called the temp file policy. But this menu gives you a few more options for the frames of a specific render. And this is more advanced. I'm aware this is more advanced. Most of the time you don't have to worry about this. I just want to give you some idea that you could do this if you needed to for some reason. And I think that was the last thing. We have some cool stuff coming up, but I wanted to put you up to speed with all the new things that we've added over the last few months. I hope you're enjoying RenderBoss. If you have issues, you can use the contact us button. That's the best way if you're having technical issues, because that will also send us the RenderBoss log. So, it just makes it a lot easier for us to find where the issue is happening. But for general questions, you can check out the help files, or you can just email us support@kineticportal.com. All that information is down in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.